is my delight to welcome you to the People's Health Alliance Wellness Wednesday series. Today, I'm honored to introduce Hilary Lee to you. I got involved with Hilary and a dynamic team through the Society of Arts and Dementia Care here in Western Australia years ago. We steered a yearly creative and expressive symposium that ignited a new love for working with people with dementia in myself. I also felt the impact of the Spark of Life model when I worked as an occupational therapist in residential care, and it changed my approach forever. Although I'm not a master practitioner in it, I know more or less what it's about, and I want to share this with you. Hilary Lee is the president of Dementia Care International, with a global focus on leadership support, education, and innovation. Together with professors of the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, and Hilary has developed a groundbreaking assessment to identify the abilities of people with dementia. I've used that assessment as well, and it's lovely. She was also the primary editor for the Macmillan book, Creative Approaches in Dementia. Hilary Lee is here today to talk to us about the Spark of Life model in dementia care. Welcome, Hilary. And I just want to know, what do you see as the most important quality of this model of care? Maybe you can start like that.
Thank you, Dorothy. And, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation and for the lovely introduction. And I actually have a short PowerPoint that I'd love to share that actually starts with exactly that question, will answer that question that you've just asked. So what if I just pop that up and then we can continue with our, questions and answers. So it will give people a bit of an idea what I'm talking about. So just bringing this up on the screen here now. Just check if you can all see that. Can you see? Just nod if you can see. Yep, fantastic. All right, I'll just bring this alive for you so you can see what the Spark of Life model of care is. Oops, let me just see if this is going to actually move. Yes, it is. So firstly, because it's actually wonderful that you just did that grounding exercise before we started, because there's a strong connection with that heart-to-heart focus in what we do. So it was a great introduction in a way. And we're very much inspired by the Indigenous communities, and in particular the Aboriginal community who we've been involved with here in Australia. And Kuta Cornwall, he's actually one of our Spark of Life master practitioners. And he said, we are humans first. When we connect human to human with emotion, we can transcend all boundaries and all borders. That just sets the scene for where we're coming from. So when we look at what the Spark of Life philosophy, which is kind of the pivot point or the grounding part of the Spark of Life model of care, it is about the importance of being emotionally connected. This is the essence. And Tom Kitwood, who was the founder of person-centered care in England, he talked about, when he was trying to describe why person-centered care was important, he said, it's the absence of genuine attention, respect, and love, which at the end of the day is deeply damaging for the person. And the only solution within reach is, at the most basic, honest, humane level, is through kindness, understanding, and love. So this is where we're coming from. That's the highest priority of the work that we do, is to really infuse kindness, understanding, and love into dementia care, whether it be residential care, aged care, community care, or, for families who are at home. this is the key to actually connecting with the person with dementia and meeting their needs. So when we talk about an authentic person-centered approach, this focuses on relationships. It focuses on communication, on individuality, and on feelings, and on abilities that are retained. And that's based on a strong ethical commitment. Like when we're talking about staff in aged care, you know, it's like that's our ethic, that's our intent, that's what we're coming with to be able to support a person with dementia in the best possible way. So the importance of connecting with kindness, understanding, and love. You know, when you can sense the emotion of another person, a natural understanding flows between you. And this is love at work, because those we understand, we love. And that's a quote from Jane Verity, who's the founder of Dementia Care International and founder of Spark of Life philosophy. And you can see here a beautiful photo of Selvi Izzetti. She's actually a Spark of Life master practitioner from Kosovo. And she actually works with the Centre for Rehabilitation for Torture Victims in Kosovo. I'll share a bit more about that later. But they've also taken on this beautiful philosophy, Spark of Life, as well. So we talk about activating our humanness. You know, so often that's what's disconnected in aged care. It's disconnected by feeling compelled to have that professional distance. It doesn't help people with dementia to have a professional distance. So we need to activate our humanness. And, you know, when we can feel what the other person is experiencing, we naturally want to help. This is empathy in action. And it's that deep understanding and connection that's based on love and empathy and kindness that's the key to preventing elder abuse as we know it today. I'm just going to move. I've got that's right, I've got some things in the way on the screen here. So the essence of person-centered care, some of you may know a bit about Tom Kitwood and person-centered care, and he created this image of a flower to illustrate what the needs were, the psychological needs of people with dementia. And the most important one is actually at the center of a flower. And you know how the center of a flower is where all the petals attach. And if the center is removed, you know, flower will die. So at the center of Tom Kitwood's flower, representing the 5 psychological needs, it's love. So love is what holds everything together. So the Spark of Life philosophy is what we call a heart-centered practice. And it provides a systematic strategy for connecting with empathy and love and compassion. And the philosophy really activates the heart in person-centered care. And when we have that environment with a heart-centered approach, that is the key to facilitating rementia. That's like the reversal of dementia symptoms. So that's what we call cognitive rehabilitation. And the Spark of Life philosophy facilitates an environment in which the human connection is of such a caliber that it lifts this person's spirit and it facilitates the possibility of rehabilitation and rementia. And rementia, that concept was first used by Professor Tom Kitwood, who defined it this way. It describes the recovery of lost abilities when the social and emotional environment becomes more supportive and understanding. So this means that the world around the person with dementia, whether it be at home with family members or whether it be in a community care setting or palliative care setting or residential care setting, it's actually us, the human beings that surround the person with dementia, that are the most important. We create the world for that person with dementia, and we actually provide the key to actually supporting them to come out of their shell and awaken their dormant abilities. So we hold a lot of power. And of course, that depends on the knowledge and the understanding and skills that we have. If we have some understanding of what to do, we can really enhance the quality of that social and emotional environment around the person. So we come here to introducing the Spark of Life model of care. And the main purpose of the Spark of Life model of care is to enable a healthcare service to embed the Spark of Life philosophy, which is all about that beautiful human connection that uplifts a person and facilitates recovery of lost skills and ignites that person's spirit, makes them feel wonderful, you know, really have a high quality of life and enjoy their life again, basically. And we want to infuse that philosophy into every area of the care service with the immense benefit to residents and clients and staff. They need that as well. And of course, the families, they benefit indirectly because, of course, if their family member is well cared for and having a high quality of life, they're going to be reassured. They can sleep at night, you know, as well. And it benefits the community. All of this has a flow on and the entire healthcare service. So you could describe the Spark of Life model of care as a turnkey system. And what that means is that it comes complete with everything you need. It comes complete with all the programs, the resources and the services that a healthcare service will need to actually implement it. And it will be sustainable as well over time. So it can be applied across the spectrum of services. And, you know, we've learned through experience that it can be applied in residential care, in community care, in palliative care and hospital care. It's also being applied in older adult mental health. And then it's flowing out into other areas that we actually hadn't imagined, like for children with intellectual disabilities, for autism, for trauma support, like this service in Kosovo, for support of the stolen generation in the Aboriginal community, even for prisoners in Tasmania, high security prisoners in Tasmania have actually been exposed or have been supported with the Spark of Life philosophy through one of our master practitioners over there. So it has quite a diversity of application, and we can probably talk a bit more about that at the end of this PowerPoint. I think Dorothee had some questions that she wanted to ask about that. So I'm really happy to tell you a bit more details about this, because it is really fascinating how it can be applied in these very, very diverse areas and locations around the world. So the model can basically flow seamlessly across all of these different service pathways. And then it's often reassuring, especially for healthcare providers, when they have to make a choice of which programs do they adopt or which programs they don't adopt. This is a best practice model of care. And when it was developed, best practice protocols were used for developing it, and they were followed in the whole development process. It's like a continuous improvement in process, research, practice in the field, ideas coming from that practice, maybe identifying a new need, developing and meeting that need, and then bringing it into the model. So we've had a lot of communication with stakeholders, with international healthcare providers, with people with dementia, with their families, with everyone involved. We've communicated and taken note and added what people are asking for into this model. So it's become, you know, very, very practical, very thorough and in-depth. And it's also, in practice, the model meets the WHO definition of best practice, which they describe as a technique or method that, through experience and research, has proven to reliably lead to the desired result. And the model's been extensively field tested in, well, significantly diverse healthcare services and cultures on 5 continents, like right up in Iceland, for example, and in New Zealand as well. Like both parts of the world, you could almost cut, put a line through the middle, and I think the two kind of connect with each other. So, yeah, really all around the world. So just to explain about our organisation, the organisation behind the Spark of Life philosophy and the Spark of Life model of care. So Dementia Care International, we've been around for quite a long time, actually. The organisation was founded in 1993 by my colleague Jane Verity, and the focus has always been on humanising dementia care, facilitating rementia, so that's the recovery of dormant abilities when the social and emotional environment around the person improves and is supportive and understanding. And Dementia Care International is the independent organisation behind the Spark of Life philosophy and model of care. So all of our education is based on the Spark of Life philosophy. You know, we do half and 1 day education programs, we do 4-day courses, and then we do a whole 3-week program that enables an organisation to have a master practitioner, well, usually at least 2 master practitioners, and actually implement the whole program in their service in a structured way. And the knowledge behind the organisation, behind the Spark of Life model of care is very thorough and rich knowledge. It's coming like from Jane Verity and myself. So Jane Verity, she's our founder and CEO. She's got a background in occupational therapy from Scandinavia. She was actually from Denmark. And she's got international expertise in facilitating rehabilitation in dementia. And she's also a family therapist specialising in advanced systems theory. That's certainly something that's become quite embedded in our whole approach. And it means that there's a no blame approach sort of infused in everything we do. If there's a problem, it's a problem with the system. It's not a problem with one person. So we always try and understand what's going on in the whole system to find a solution. So it's got quite a high level of empathy and thought behind it. And Jane is also a master practitioner in neuro-linguistic programming, which is how language programs our brain. And that's been key to providing some very practical strategies to help people with dementia and to support, you know, whether we want to dissolve challenging behaviour or whether we want to elicit and bring out dormant abilities. That neuro-linguistic programming can be very practical and powerful and give good strategies when we educate people. It gives strategies to the staff and families to actually use to connect in a way that works. And then my background, I've got a master's degree in science in research, and that research was actually on the Spark of Life rehabilitative program. That's how it all started, and I did 7 years of research on that. So it was very extensive, very thorough, and yeah, a big thing. And part of that, I did some postgraduate qualifications in qualitative and quantitative health research methods. And also I did at the same time some postgraduate studies in public policy and leadership. And my background also happens to be in occupational therapy, and I studied in Oxford in England. That's where I started out, but I've been here now probably around 40 years, so I'm pretty Australian now. So that's our background. And all the material that's in the Spark of Life philosophy and model of care is original material. And, you know, while we've taken inspiration and understanding from person-centered care, this approach is more of a how you actually implement. It's the practical part. It's what you actually do when you are faced with someone with dementia. How do you connect? How do you communicate? How do you build that trust? And then how do you actually facilitate a culture that's supportive in aged care? You know, we all know the challenges of aged care. It's been so evident on TV. We had a Royal Commission in Australia. It was so damning of what's happening in aged care and how there is, you know, so much elder abuse. And elder abuse can take place in different ways, whether people are over-medicated or neglected or just so many things. Their choices are taken away and they have absolute poverty of quality of life. Or the staff are just simply not educated to know what to do, which exposes them to risks. You know, there are some serious issues in aged care, and they really haven't been addressed to this point, even now, because people don't know how to do it. They know what to do. They know what they want to achieve. We've got quite good standards in Australia as far as the standards that we were looking to achieve. You know, they make sense. They're very thorough, but organisations are struggling to find out ways that they can meet those standards. So being both practitioners, Jane and myself, we've been practitioners in the field, we've worked in the field, we know what it looks like, we know what good care looks like, we know what poor care looks like. And so the focus has always been to look at something practical that people can actually do to make it work. That's always been the intent behind this, to actually make it work and make the work environment, you know, as positive as it can be, to make it enjoyable to work in aged care. And if you can do that, you can attract more staff, you can attract the right staff. Then you don't get the complaints, you don't get families complaining, because actually everyone's receiving, you know, good quality care and everyone's happy. So that's what we're working to achieve. So all of that came around from talking about this being original material. So what happened initially, Jane Verity developed the philosophy in practice, and then I took this 7-year independent peer-reviewed qualitative research study. That was through Curtin University of Technology here in Perth. And then together, after 2007, when the research was finished, we worked together to actually develop the philosophy into a whole model of care. So taking it from what originated like a group program, a therapeutic group program, taking what worked in that program to expand to skills to apply to education for a whole team, for a whole service, and then adding layers of culture enrichment tools as well to actually support the whole culture of a service, and the evaluation tools needed to actually identify whether it's working or not. So we've developed the whole evaluation. I suppose it's a parallel program to actually look at how it's going. And then with that feedback, the master practitioners can actually do continuous improvement and implement strategies to address any issues that come up as they go along. So there are 3 distinct elements of the model. There's a Spark of Life master practitioner, so they might be a leader in the service, and there might be someone at a senior level, perhaps they're a allied health practitioner or a senior nurse, a quality nurse or someone like that. They would be ideal people to be a master practitioner. It wouldn't be someone who's, say, a carer, because there are some human resource issues, you know, involved, because the master practitioner may identify training needs, educational needs of staff in the process of doing their education. So they need to be a senior staff member. So the master practitioner is the person who's really responsible for the implementation. Then there's the Spark of Life quality management system. That's this part of the model. That's all of the tools and the resources and the education that we give them and teach them how to use on the master course. They're, you know, provided with everything they need, all of the PowerPoints, presenters' notes, how to train their staff, even to how to give education for families. We've got a 4-module family education support. So if you've got families who are coming in, or it's a community service where people may still actually be living with families, we've got education for them as well. So we've really tried to look at everybody's needs in the development. And then, of course, the philosophy here, this part of the model, that's what underwrites everything. That's what kind of, it's all resting on the philosophy, but the other parts are actually about implementing the philosophy and in a sustainable way, a structured and sustainable way. So that's the quality management system. I think I just explained that, and the master practitioner. And, you know, master practitioner, they need to be emotionally intelligent. They need to be liked by their colleagues, because they're going to be spending a lot of time, you know, supporting, educating, mentoring them, being a role model. So the selection of the right master practitioner is quite important. And we spend a lot of time from Dementia Care International supporting our master practitioners. Really, we want them to we obviously want the model to work, and so they get bi-monthly education and support, and a lot of other mentoring as well to set them up for success. Here we've got, you can see a picture of one of our master practitioners who's actually now retired, and she's from Iceland. And she's here pictured in this photo educating a group of people in the Spark of Life rehabilitative program. So she's giving some of our education. So the Master Leadership program that we run usually twice a year, It's via Zoom now. We used to run it face-to-face. People used to come to Perth and we'd run a 3-week program here in Perth. But after COVID, everything changed and we ended up developing our education to be online, which I have to say we never imagined we would. We thought, oh, this is so experiential. You could never do it online. But it actually does work. We put a lot of time and energy into making our education engaging, uplifting, exciting, interactive, and covering everything that we wanted to cover. So it definitely works. We've been running it, I think, since 2021 via Zoom, and yeah, it's proved itself to be working very thoroughly. So the Master Leadership Program is a 6-week intensive Educate the Educator program. So, you know, the master practitioners, they learn from us, then they train their team. But the education doesn't go any further than that. So it really stays with the people who are connected with us. It doesn't get watered down. So it also teaches the master practitioner how to give the education in a way that's memorable and supportive for everyone involved. Because, I mean, you probably all know, you will remember your teachers at school that were good, or maybe not at school, even more recently, and probably some of you have done adult education. Teaching is not something everyone does naturally. And it's important with educating in Spark of Life that you take everybody's needs into, you know, consideration, and you make sure that everyone understands the concepts and that it's memorable. So we actually put quite a bit of focus on that in our Master Leadership Program to be sure that the education is provided in the right way, in the best possible way. And we provide continuous expert support with an ongoing professional development program, and that's every 2 months. So because our master practitioners are from all over the world, people connect in from all of these different countries, you know, on Zoom. So not only is it, we have like an hour of education, and then we usually have, you know, quite a bit of time for discussion, feedback, and people, you know, sharing as well, sharing what's happening in their part of the world. And I think everyone really learns from seeing and hearing about these most diverse countries and what people are doing. And sometimes you think, you know, you've got a problem in your part of the world, you hear about other people's problems and you think, you know what, we're actually quite lucky here. So it's insightful in that way. So once you know, once a master practitioner has been certified, because our courses are certified, certainly the master practitioner course is certified, so they do assessments, pass those assessments and get their certificate. Then they can embark on the implementation of the model of care, and then we start doing our bi-monthly education with them. And if you're wondering, so who can implement the model? Well, it is usually someone at the high level, like senior level. Here you can see a gorgeous photo. We've got Karen Wilson, who's actually residential manager. She's at one of the organisations, Caloundra in Queensland, part of Southern Cross Care. And one of her colleagues, Fiona Woodward, and they're both qualified master practitioners just from last year. And you know, it's supportive to have 2 master practitioners. They can help each other. They probably have different strengths. One of them might be stronger in educating, one of them might be stronger in implementation. And so, you know, we've found that that's a good structure to have the 2 to help each other. And it's a cost-effective model. Like, we're so aware that some models internationally are very expensive for an organisation, and you know, having worked in care, and we have had so many conversations with healthcare providers, we have got a sense of, you know, the challenges with all of the financial side of things. So we've really worked to make the model as cost-effective as possible. And the good thing is that we've also seen that providers get quite a significant return on their investment, and it's usually in those indirect ways where you're seeing reduced stress and trauma and injury leave on staff. Like, those things can be extremely expensive when staff have a, you know, maybe they get punched by a resident because the staff didn't know how to communicate with them, and that, you know, suddenly a behaviour occurred. You know, if we can reduce those, reducing falls and all of those things, we reduce the risks on staff as well, and that has a significant financial benefit for the providers. There's less hours spent on accreditation preparation because they've got enhanced documentation in place. So the work we do really helps, is supportive of care planning as well. And there's a reduction in complaints through the enriched care practices and improved relationships with families. You know, instead of seeing, sometimes families are seen as a problem when they come in, and you could sense the staff are like, oh gosh, it's that family member. Well, we work on really promoting and developing connections with families and seeing them as an asset. Now, how wonderful if the families come in and give some support, and how can we make them welcome? How can we include them in their family members' care? They often just want to be included. And what's wrong with that? If we can facilitate that. And we can also see that they get benefits from full occupancy. So if they've got all their beds, they've got as many residents as they can fit in their service, and that's also ensuring that their cash flow is working well too. And you see reduction in recruitment expenses because they start to become a preferred employer, and people actually ringing up and asking if they've got jobs there. And you're probably aware it's become quite hard to gain staff. That's why we're getting a lot of people from overseas now to work in dementia care. But how wonderful if you actually have people ringing up and asking to work in a service because they know that the culture of care is positive and they get education, they're motivated to work there. That's a huge benefit as well. So I'd love to just show, I'm sort of getting towards the end of this PowerPoint here, just to show you some photos of what does this look like. You're probably wondering, how would this look like in practice? Well, we've been fortunate to recently have just received some really gorgeous photos from some of our master practitioners. So I'm going to show you what this can look like actually in practice. So firstly, we've got Michelle McCormack at Adriel Rest Home. She's Adriel House and Rest Home. And they are 2 Spark of Life Centres of Excellence in New Zealand. And they've been certified as Centres of Excellence since 2019. So I'm going to show you some pictures of what it looks like there. It's just a beautiful, beautiful home. She's in an area, it's not far outside of Christchurch, and it's a bit of a farming area. So there's a lot of farmers that actually end up living at Adriel Home. So as an integral part of the model of care at Adriel, all the staff are educated in the Spark of Life philosophy, and they've learned to ensure that every resident can contribute daily to really living and thriving, and they're contributing to the whole community in their own individual and meaningful way. So it means that each person's got a reason to get up in the morning. They know they've got a value, they know they have a role to play. Their identity and self-esteem is restored, and they have a reason to live. So here are some gorgeous photos of some self-initiated work that these people are doing, like even mowing the lawn. Like Michelle, she actually, sorry, I'm just going back to that slide. She has a gardener, our maintenance man. She actually pays him extra hours so that he can be there to support the residents, so they can actually do a lot of the work that he would be doing. But they do it obviously with a bit of support in the background. So for example, with this gentleman who's mowing, the maintenance man is there nearby keeping an eye, but he's able to mow the lawn. And all of these people have dementia. Like, you might think, oh, they don't have dementia. They really do. And some of them have got quite advanced dementia. So you can see, they've got, this gentleman's here is kneeling down at the flower bed, doing some weeding. There's these gentlemen who are, doing some weeding on the raised flower beds here. And this man here, he's watering the plants in the greenhouse, and there's some people picking the fruit here. So lots of meaningful activities that they're doing. This gentleman here, he's actually making some jam in the kitchen. Obviously, there's a staff member with him, but there you go. He's making jam, and that's with the fruit that they grew there on the at Adriel Home. because Michelle, I should just say, she actually is a farmer herself, the owner of the home. She has a farm just nearby. So sometimes she brings in the animals as well, and they get to sort of have a bit of contact with the animals too. These ladies, they're making sandwiches for an event. So you can see they've got their gloves for safety on, and they are, making a batch of sandwiches all together. And here we've got a lady helping a carer folding the washing in the lounge. These gentlemen, they're feeding some lambs here. And so they've got a bottle of milk and they're feeding the lambs, which is just so gorgeous. And this gentleman, he's someone who I think he wasn't actually accepted in quite a few other homes. There were quite a few challenges that he had, sort of behavioural issues. And he's absolutely fine at Adriel. They've really given him meaning and purpose, and he's out there with Michelle, and he's actually choosing his own meat in the supermarket, and he does that every week. He gets invited to go to the supermarket, and he's choosing the meat, and he knows what to pick, and he chooses that. And some more photos here. The residents there, some of them on a little trip to the beach, which is not that far from where they are. There's a gentleman here. Now, yes, he really is jogging. He goes for a morning jog every morning. And Michelle asked if one of the carers would go with him. And she actually struggles to keep up because he is actually so fast that, he is just off, and he does his morning jog every day. And some delightful pictures also with the motorbikes and tinkering in the shed. And I don't know about you, but looking at these pictures, if I had to go into a nursing home, this is the place I would choose. So this is feedback from Michelle from an operational point of view. Like, she's found one of the key benefits being a preferred care provider, because it's definitely a challenge if you don't have anyone wanting to move into your facility. You're at risk of having to close down. But she's finding that they're now operating at full capacity, and she's not in the most easy to get location either, but they operate at full capacity, and she has a heightened reputation in the local and surrounding communities. People have heard of it by word of mouth from the relatives, as well as people with dementia themselves, because she usually has, I think, 1 or 2 respite rooms, and it's from the respite residents that go back to the community, and they talk to other people. They say how nice it is, and that they actually want to live there. They choose to live there. They want to go back. If they have to move into home, that's where they want to be. And also they're a preferred employer. So now they don't need to use agency staff. That's quite a significant saving for an organisation if they don't need to pay agency staff. So as a team, the staff take responsibility for working together when a need arises to fill a shift. And they work to deliberately attract new staff from other fields, and they come with a fresh mindset, like no preconceived ideas. So they're just open to trying this refreshing approach. And so another way that they grow their own workforce is inviting young after-school students. Children and grandchildren of current staff, they might come and work there. Like this gorgeous girl in the photo, it's actually Michelle's granddaughter. She's working there, and I think she's peeling potatoes with this gentleman in the photo. And she also supports staff to complete their nursing training. So they might, I suppose it's like a supportive placement where they work, and she's helping with paperwork that needs to be done to sort of in their nursing practical side of things to gain their full nursing competencies. So all the staff are nurtured and educated in the Spark of Life philosophy and gently guided. And just lastly with Michelle, that it's really practical that they can meet the government standards and audits, which is of course a stressful time for nursing homes when they go through these audits. And they've found that, they actually do really well on their audits because of Spark of Life. It's the continuous feedback process that is supporting them with doing so well in that accreditation, that there's always feedback sought from staff and family members as well. And the tools that we provide through the model of care on how to decrease behaviours of concern and reducing antipsychotic medication. and all that data collection as part of the continuous improvement process. That's why they've done so well. And just one other example here, Tanya Hammond, who works in South Australia. So from a rural and remote perspective here in Australia, Tanya is also a master practitioner. And you can see her, she's in this picture here with Edna outside Miroma Place in Cummins. That's where she was based. I think she's now in Port Lincoln. This is just showing you how large the region is where she's working. So it's got 10 multi-purpose services. And this region serves a population of 40,000 people over an area of 337,626 square kilometres in South Australia. So it's a massive area serving a small resident population. And this is just a quote from Tanya about Spark of Life. She says, as a nurse practitioner and a Spark of Life master practitioner, I make the most of the short connections with residents and clients living with dementia wherever I see them. Seeing the person for who they are and their full potential, to identify any misunderstandings, recognising their unmet needs, developing individualised Spark of Life strategies to meet these needs. So these are just ways that she uses Spark of Life. And she's commented that it's really helping meet the new strengthened quality standards in aged care as well. And in particular, this she referred to standard 3, like who I am, what's important to me. And I just want to show you an example of a lady called Ella, who she supported. And, you know, what happened with this lady, she actually had almost given up on life. She had been stopping eating for some time and got very, very thin. And the staff had come up to Tanya and said, look, we're not sure how this lady's not doing well at all. You know, they were concerned that she might not have long to live. And so Tanya went up to her and got down below eye level and made that special connection with her and asked her, what is her favourite thing to eat? What does she love eating? And she said, oh, I do love a tomato sandwich. And so she invited Ella to actually make her own sandwich. And so she provided all the bits and pieces that she needed and set her up at this table and just sat there with support, like obviously in support, but Ella actually did this all herself. She, you know, buttered the bread, she sliced up the tomato, she put on the onion, put on the salt and pepper, cut it in half, and then took a big bite. And like at face value, that looks very normal, but for someone who's basically stopped eating and the staff had given up on, you know, they thought that she just wouldn't survive. This was like a catalyst for her to come back. And then a gentleman knocked on the door and he said, oh, that looks nice. Could I have one too? So she actually made another one for this gentleman who came and joined her, and they sat down and had this sandwich together. So it's just a practical example of what this can do. It's so simple in a way. It's obviously you can teach people to do this. It's not rocket science, but it's not happening. You just don't see this happening. So it's like we can empower people with really just basic skills that makes a humongous difference in these people's lives and is transformative. So just summing up this short introduction to the model of care and philosophy, we've actually got a quote from Andrew Larpent here. He's Andrew Larpent OBE. He's actually the founding member of Common Age, which supports older people throughout the Commonwealth. And what he says about the Spark of Life model of care is that it provides a transferable framework of education and care practices that are meaningful and effective in diverse cultures and in all areas of care, including the community and palliative care. And in 2024, last year, on behalf of Common Age, Andrew Larpent invited our organisation to provide a key report on the Spark of Life model of care that was then featured in the solutions section of a special high-level report they were providing at the CHOGM meeting, to the heads of government meeting, about basically best practice in dementia care in the Commonwealth. So that's you know, reassuring to know that we've got that recognition by the Commonwealth. So we've got our contact details there just here on the PowerPoint. You can look at that. You've got that for the record for later, and really ready for questions and anything you wish to ask. I'm happy to ask. And I'll just see how I can exit from this PowerPoint.
Hilary, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, you covered it all, because I had one question that I had was especially, have you got any proof or testimonies of the carers? But you had plenty. I mean, all of their lives have enriched. I'm just a bit nosy because personally, you mentioned to me as well that you've got something happening in the rural areas of Western Australia as well. How do you do that if it's community-based? How do you reach those?
Yes, we're working with the West Australian Healthcare Service. So we're working with the Midwest, like quite in quite an ongoing way at the moment. So they have a quality nurse who goes site by site to these rural sites. So they're places like Carnarvon and Exmouth and Dongara, Morowa. So some of them have got quite small communities and they're small places, and they have the aged care part might be part of the hospital. So it's like a multi-purpose service, a little bit like Tanya in South Australia. It's a similar kind of model. And for quite a while, we've been providing spark of life education for them. Like, while they don't have a master practitioner yet, I'd say that's on the horizon. They're definitely, you know, considering that. And so we would provide, say, you know, 1 or 2 day courses for them. And over time, while we provided those, I guess it's got a bit of momentum because the staff have found it really helpful and valuable for the, you know, the skills of looking after people with dementia, whether they're based in a hospital or in the actual aged care service. And we've also been providing our 4-day rehabilitative program, which is more in-depth skills of how you work both in a group, for a structured group way for people with dementia and adapting to the different levels of dementia. And you can apply those skills also just on a one-on-one. So you could have maybe a more senior staff member coming, and they're really benefiting because they can use their skills in the care planning and mentoring their staff as well. So that's become part of their continuous improvement, and in their planning when they have meetings and new staff come on board and their training may be very basic, they're looking to enroll them in that 4-day course to really upskill them. So they've got confidence to, you know, attend to care for people in a more in-depth way and in a more practical way. And we're actually running a course next week on this 4-day course. I've been speaking with some of these people just this last week doing our Zoom check. And one lady I just spoke to who hasn't done the course before, she's coming next week, just said, you know, I've just been asking other people who've done the course, you know, what is it like? And I haven't heard a bad thing. They all just think it's, you know, it's just so good and it's so helpful and practical. And so that's really good feedback. It's great to hear that. And yeah, so it's working very well in this, you know, most remote area where you'd think it would be quite challenging to provide dementia care.
Because I think, you know, that is really what drew me to the program right from the start. And I only attended, I think, these information sessions. I remember I was always extremely excited after that to put it in practice. And one simple thing that I immediately could put into practice is go down the eye level, you know, below the eye level of the patient, and it immediately opened doors. And then I started using my hands in a different way, and I was even my mum, who was working in dementia care in South Africa, she also decided she's going to wear more colorful tops in order to print that down on the memory, you know, and they actually see you when you come through the door, with the greeting and the acknowledgement and the name and all of that. Yeah, it sounds sometimes like, you know, we are doing that normally, but we don't, because people are especially in residential care, they are in a hurry to do their task and to finish it and to do it on time, and they have a lot of written stuff to do as well. So I suppose many will ask you, you know, especially if they were carers, how do I get everything done if I have to spend so much quality time with a resident? Have you ever had those sort of questions?
Yes, we do. We probably get that all the time. But the interesting thing is that it's not really about time. It's about the quality of the time that you spend with the person. So imagine you've got two carers who are helping a lady walk into the dining room. And they could do it in a way where they're talking, maybe the lady's a little bit shorter than them and they're just chatting over the lady's head about their weekend and, you know, but they could do it so differently and actually involve the lady and talk with her.
Yeah.
And, you know, let's
Yeah.
say it's Doris, and say, Doris, you know, I saw your son came in the other day, you know, it's so lovely to see him, or whatever, just to include that person. And
Yeah.
it's how you do these things, because the activity is going to take the time it takes. But if you actually connect with emotion, with care, with love and kindness, you might get that activity done a lot quicker. You're actually likely to decrease the potential for behavior challenges. Like I've seen in care plans, takes 4 people to shower for a person who's ambulant. For someone who can walk, and it takes 4 people to shower. So you only get this image in your head. What are they doing? What's happening? Is this a battle that's going on? So, you know, if you create rapport, trust, and empathy with that person, it may only take one person to you know, support them in the shower, and I'm sure that's better for everyone involved. So these skills are really important.
Lisa was asking, do master practitioners work exclusively in aged care or dementia care, or can they work in community setting like a well-being clinic?
They can, as long they're usually attached to a service. We would work with an organisation and actually have a service agreement with that organisation. So don't work like a consultant on their own. But yes, definitely in the community. We actually work with quite a few different community organisations, day centres, and works very well. It's ideal.
Yeah, I guess as well, if I look into, you know, an occupational therapist point of view, where you see an area that is a little bit institutionalized, where the person has been put. It can be anything. It can be even in their own home. Sometimes, you know, a person with dementia is being asked to sit still and be quiet.
Absolutely.
You know, instead of being engaged or being part of the family routine or having a purpose or these type of things, you know, that can happen in any area. And you know, I find there's a huge challenge as well with people with dementia that have to go to hospital for a short while. You know, nobody's covering that area because they're supposed to be clinical and they're supposed to be a home, and you know, who does what. It's really challenging.
That's right. Yeah, very true.
Anne was asking, what other New Zealand locations use the model?
At the moment, it's really Adriel. We have had a few others and people have retired or one of the homes closed, and there've been different things. So yeah, those things are really out of our control. So yeah, it's Adriel right now. Yeah, definitely. It certainly very well resonates with New Zealanders, and we have got a lady we communicate who's like a consultant for the government over there, and she liaises with a lot of the providers. So she's often sharing our education with them because she's felt it's very important. So usually ends up in her newsletter. So we're in quite a bit of communication regularly with providers in New Zealand. So most people have heard about Spark of Life, and we've been over and given quite a few presentations over there. So yeah, it's certainly somewhere where, you know, people can apply and do the course.
How did it happen that you got involved in Africa?
Okay, so it was actually indirectly because of Common Age. And, you know, Andrew Larpent with the quote at the end of this presentation. So we went to a conference here in Perth where there was a whole group of people who had been funded through Common Age to go to the conference. And we met a lot of these African, they were largely from Africa, some from India, and leaders, pioneers themselves in aged care. And we met with them, actually ended up with really quite a formal meeting with them because they wanted to hear about the model. And since then, because we have a foundation, we have a charity arm called Dementia Foundation for Spark of Life. And we have, through the foundation, supported scholarships for these master practitioners from the developing countries. And we've got 2 master practitioners in Zambia, 2 in Uganda, 2 in Nigeria, 2 in Kenya through the foundation. And also in India, we have 2 in Mumbai, 1 in Kolkata as well, and 2 in Kosovo. So all through the support of the foundation, we've been able to sort of provide these special scholarships. And you think, wow, such a different culture, but it works. I mean, this is about emotion. This is about empathy and kindness. Well, every human being on the planet has these emotions. They all have that need to be supportive. And they found it extremely cost effective in Africa, extremely supportive, very empowering, and it's given them positive acknowledgement in their countries. Like James in Kenya, he's giving education to his community now. He educates carers in Nairobi. It's really given his service like a lift to become like quite highly regarded in Kenya. And often the services we're working with, they are like the key dementia service in their country. They're completely forging new ground. So it's a privilege for us to work with them. But I think what they've achieved through Spark of Life has definitely helped a lot. It's all on our website. I can send you some links to share with your network to share later if people are interested to read a bit more. So very inspiring stories. I think you might just muted.
Yes, there are a few more questions, but I think we'll stop the recording now, and then we'll answer the questions after that. Yeah, I just want to thank you, Hilary, from the bottom of my heart that you were able to really make some time to speak to us at the People's Health Alliance. We are a grassroots organization, and we really promote everything that is not in, being preached out for the general public. And I know in aged care facilities, they desperately try to tick all the boxes, but it is really quite impossible.
I know, and hopefully we can help in a way. So yes, it's a pleasure to talk to your network here. Thank you very much for the invitation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.